This is Playing Pretend, your creative bestie's favorite podcast, with me, Catherine Rossler. Okay, so I've just set a timer on my phone because for some reason, oh my god, did I set it? Yes. There's still some things I have to figure out with my camera because it stops recording at like 20 minutes. And I used to have this thing that would record over the allotted time that my camera could record, but we're just figuring that out. Wow. Okay. So I went on a break a few weeks ago, and then I said I was back, and then I just stopped posting episodes because July got hectic and crazy as fuck. Okay. So much has happened. I feel like there's so much that I have to update y'all on the pod. I guess we'll start. So today we're going to talk about the podcast. I'm going to talk about Art Freaks, the art club that I just started. Showing the process, expanding the idea of how I'm identifying long COVID comedy. Okay. That's the list of things I have to talk about for episode 15, right? Yeah, so much things. So let's talk about the podcast. Okay, when I first started the podcast, I feel like the first episodes were very... Oh yeah, also, welcome to my Maja's and Faja's backyard. It is a little warm, but I really wanted to be outside and record outside, so we'll see how this goes. So yeah, the podcast, the first episodes were more like free-flowing and free format and just like me talking off the riff, which I prefer that. I prefer to have like a super loose structure and just like come and yap. Then through further on in the episodes, I was trying to like build more structure, which was good. I think audience-wise, like if you're watching, I think that it serves a certain audience. You know, I was looking, like there was a few YouTube videos I was watching about podcast structure and YouTube structure, and then also people that I was consuming, and I was feeling like I was getting really influenced by that of like how the podcast should be. But now that I've had time away again, and I think I felt this earlier too, but I just want to free flow and talk. I don't want to worry too much about looping ideas specifically together, because when I do that, then I come in and I'm like more in my head, and I don't want to be in my head. I want to be speaking into the microphone and just like here and present and like genuine instead of being somewhere else. And I felt like with that format, I'm somewhere else. I'm not that kind of person. You know, there are different kinds of people and how they, oh, cute little butterfly or a moth. Adorable. And how they work and function. And I'm a very like spontaneous in the moment person. Like I just have to, like it when it comes through me, like it has to come through me. I'm not that much of a planner. Like I do like to plan, but I feel like my type of planning is different than the way other people plan, if that makes sense. And I am definitely like a feelings-based person. I am very much like into my feels and intuition, and like I want to be in the right feeling for me, if that makes sense. That's how I feel like things are genuine and like things are good. So yeah, that's kind of the podcast format moving forward and what I want to lean into, instead of trying to fit a certain framework that, you know, does well on for podcasts or does well on YouTube. But rather just like really tap into me and what works for me. And I'm glad that I tried that out, because I needed I'm also a very I need to immerse myself to understand and learn, right? So if I didn't try and immerse myself in that world, I wouldn't know, and I'd always be questioning what if. I'm a very try or die kind of person. Like I have to try things. That's been like the narrative of my whole life. Like I've always been I just have to try to see if I like it. You know, I don't want to second guess later in life being like, oh, like what if I had done it that way? I like to try out things and see if they work, and if they work, they work, and if they don't, they don't. And then I know, and I discover more about me. And really, I feel like that's so coded about about every way I am in life. And you know how sometimes you want to try and change certain things about you? And I think for a long time I've tried to change that, but now I'm like, you know what? This is my superpower. This is what I'm going to lean into, because this is what makes me me, you know? Funny enough, and I'll jump to Art Freaks in a bit, but at Art Freaks today, one of my mom's really good friends who I've kind of call her an aunt. She's somebody that's always been in my life. She showed me this picture. It's like, oh, this reminded me of you. And it was like all these kids' nostalgic toys plastered onto like the ceiling, like in an archway as like a welcome kind of sculpture for, I don't know. She pulled it out of a magazine, but like I saw it, was like, yeah, that's what I am. I'm a little chaotic. I'm really colorful. I'm all over the place. I'm spontaneous, but I'm also like sturdy and grounded. I'm there for inspiration, you know? But yeah, that's on me. Yeah, also the podcast, am I going to change the name again? I might change the name again, okay? I've already done that like 4 times. But I mean, if you haven't done that on my Instagram, I've changed my Instagram handle a bajillion million times. It used to be like, I don't know, it used to be like KSC Rossler, Catherine on the Road. I think it was like Kitty Cat for a while. It was Cosmic Daisy. Actually, Cosmic Daisy was another art. I think it was like Catherine Rossler art. Like I always change it because I'm always like trying on new personas or like new ventures. But I might change this into Art Freaks Pod and affiliate it within the Art Freaks universe. I feel like it is aligned that way. Or I was thinking maybe I'll just have 2 podcasts. Is that too much? Am I asking too much of myself? Possibly. Playing pretend, you know, it came out of so many iterations of different things. The idea came to me, and I'm sure I've told this before. The idea came to me when I was making art at the Kin Art Studio that I had on St. Clair Avenue in Toronto, and I was just like, sometimes when I get into like my creative flow, like everything, it's just like a rush. I don't know how to say, it's like a waterfall. It's like the dam gates have been opened, and creativity is creativity is flowing through me, and I have to listen to it and I have to get it out. And I was painting on something all day. We play pretend, and I was thinking about the idea of how in life, like, we wear many different hats, whether, you know, you're at work or with your family, you're a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, a barista, a lawyer. But then we also have like the adult, you know, like we play being adult, or what we think it is to be an adult. And really, you know, if you're in like neurodivergent, there is like the idea of masking, and I definitely fall somewhere on the neurodivergent spectrum. I know that. And sometimes I do feel too that I'm masking, but I also feel like we do that all anyways. Like we all are kind of playing the role that we believe we should be playing. And I feel like it's a multi-dimensional understanding, because, you know, sometimes like you are consciously aware of it, but I think it's also subconsciously aware of it. And sometimes it is a lot of emotional effort, especially if wherever you fall in that neurodivergent spectrum, you know, some can be like more intense that you have to mask, whether it's stimming or to like your tics, or just like to appear, you know, normal, like a person in society, what even is that anyways? I'm always questioning that. I think sometimes how I mask is like, when there's a lot of people around me, I feel overwhelmed, like very overstimulated, and I kind of just have this, like, the charismatic, kind, caring personality part of me comes out. And it's not, I don't think it's like ingenuine. It's just like kind of my default mode for being around lots of people. And I feel like I'm just like putting on face. Does that make sense? Sometimes it feels like I'm, and I feel like there's different versions of this, you know, like there's a version of this when I'm like working, or when I'm in a community space that I'm like facilitating, like with Art Freaks. And I'll get to what Art Freaks is in a bit. It's like a creative craft club that I just literally launched in July. That's where I was. And so I'll link this back, because I'm like, what was I talking about? I was talking about the name, playing pretend. But yeah, this is what it's rooted in, and the idea behind it. And yeah, sometimes like when I'm facilitating something, that is like on higher mode, but when I'm just like in large groups of people, large friend groups, I feel like I'm always like have this like anxiety of just, I'm like, everybody good? Like I'm kind of just like aware of everything around me. So I do like to do things solo, because then I feel like I can just like be me, and I don't have to be somebody, or be interactive. I find interacting can be very difficult sometimes. But I also find it very exciting. This is a contradiction that I'm still discovering and unweaving within myself, you know? But I feel like there's different versions of me that I play pretend in, even like with the idea of calling myself an artist, right? And this was on my to-do list to talk about. But when I was first stepping into the identity of calling myself an artist, it felt like an identity shift. It's something I had to really claim and like play pretend in, right? And that's something that I think I'm even doing more now, like with long COVID, or even when I was with mental health and feeling depressed or anxious or hungover or just like feeling awful, playing pretend, like playing the role of like, oh, everything's fine, everything's good, because, you know, walking around being like, I want to die, I feel awful right now, is not the way that we like, seems to be very accepted in society. It's just weird. Like, it's also just feels weird to be that way around other people. Although maybe we should probably do it more to an extent. And again, something to unpack there. But yeah, so that was kind of like the whole idea around playing pretend. And then you can go even further into my imagination, was just thinking about how other people are like that, and then how society is like that, and then the world. And it's just like very compounded, if that makes sense. Like that it's like, I don't know if it's a double entendre. I don't know what you would call that type of thing, but it's just a concept, I guess, that I find can mean different things to different people. And so that's where the words came from, or the title, Playing Pretend. Because it started as All Day I Play Pretend, then it was All Day We Play Pretend, and then it was Playing Pretend. And I was just playing pretend with Catherine Rossler. You know, that's what we're here for. Imagine I wasn't recording right now. That'd be so sad. And I think it's going to be a long episode, or maybe like it'll become 2 episodes. But, what was I saying next? Also with podcasts, I'm like, I feel like I have to fill the silence. I can't just like sit here while I'm like looking something up. I'd have to like cut it out, and I don't want to cut shit out later, you know? Oh yeah, also, okay, 2 more things about the podcast. I was contemplating for a while, this was especially when I was doing kind of that more format of linking ideas together, is that I needed support in creating it, because I was like, I fucking hate editing this shit. And also it might have been in the fact that I wasn't having as much fun recording it, and that could be part of it. But I do find the editing process, more specifically editing the clips to post to Instagram, and I don't even know if that's like really worth it. Maybe I'll just do less, maybe I'll do one. And I'm still kind of unpacking how that's going to go. But it'd be cool to do like multiple. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to also have guests on. And this is where I'm contemplating, do I keep having Playing Pretend and then have Playing Pretend, Art Freaks, and my own personal thing, separate things? Or do I blend Art Freaks and the podcast? Because I want to have, and I think I've talked about this before, but I want to have creative guests on the podcast. I have a lot of people, and I think this is like another one of my strengths, is when I am a very social person. Like when I like meeting people, I like talking to people. I'm very interested in other people. I like asking questions. I've always been a deep thinker and like curious, and I want to know why. I like to get into people's brains, and I like to get into curious people's brains. And I feel like I'm surrounded, and I know a lot of curious people, and I follow a lot of curious people online, and I want to pick the brains of some of the creatives that I know and that are in my circle. So it's kind of an excuse both to get into those brains and have a space to like talk about it, but then also uplift them as well, and kind of create a deeper part of this podcast instead of just like always yapping about me and my mind, because sometimes I think maybe it can get a bit repetitive, and all the time like I'm not always interested in talking about me. Like I want to talk about other people too, and I just want to make it like more dynamic, because, you know, sometimes I'm like super into it and sometimes I'm not. You know, sometimes I'm in the creative flow, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I want to talk, sometimes I don't. Okay? And the way that I work is like I have to go with the flow and go with what is speaking to me, because otherwise, to me, like I know some people are like, you got to do it sometimes when it doesn't feel like you want to, and I do agree with that. Like sometimes you have to do it when it doesn't feel like you want to. But if then you're doing it and you still don't want to be doing it while you're doing it, to me, that's when I'm like, okay, that's when it feels a little bit ingenuine. That's when, like, if I'm sitting here and I'm thinking in my head, oh, I can't wait for this to be over, like I want to do something else, you're gonna like feel that and like get that energy in my body language and maybe my tone of voice and that's what I mean when I say energy. You're gonna get that vibe off all the subtleties of how I'm speaking. Like, it's going to be, something will be off, and it's something that people can pick up on. Yeah, so those are some of the things that I'm like figuring out with the podcast, like what are next steps and how is it going to evolve. And I think I'm going to hash out a lot of that this month, because, yes, and now we're going to talk about Art Freaks. Art Freaks was basically all of July, okay? So and I don't know if I've talked about this much before, because I really wanted to make sure that, I honestly don't know why I didn't share much before. I think I was like so in my head about it. I was so nervous. Oh my God. Like, starting to promote it, I felt so like out of body, so disconnected, so like cringe, and just like, oh, I hate doing this. I hate just like self-promoting. Sorry. Hate self-promoting sometimes. I find it very difficult, especially with new projects. I was just like, it is like gut-wrenching. It is cringy. It's like expansive, but in this way that's uncomfortable. And even before, I had this feeling of like, is this something I want to do and pursue? And like, I don't even know what it's gonna evolve to be like. And people are always asking you questions, even with the podcast or anything that you're creating. And even this just goes general in life. Like, think simply back to like when you're in high school and people are like, what do you want to do with your life? What's your career path? Like, where do you want to go? Do you want to go to university? What are you going to do? And I don't think that ever stops. And I don't, like, no hate to people that do it. I do that too. I ask the basic, simple questions. What do you do for work? You know, do you like it? You know, where do you want to go? What are your next steps? What are your goals? Like, we're just curious people, and like, that's how we communicate sometimes, right? But on the flip side of that is that it really, like, I've noticed how it really can like influence you, and it's made me. And this is like a theme. This is like a different kind of topic before I even talk about the Art Freaks. But this theme of like boundaries in my life. So like, it really is making me understand and look at boundaries like in a completely different way. And in all different facets of my life, like my personal relationship life, that's happening. But it's also happening in my creative life. And my creative life is also kind of my work life for me personally. And it's happening in my social life, like everywhere. I feel like the theme of my life right now is just boundaries. And that even links back to long COVID, because I feel like a lot of people, or from what information I've gathered online, is like a lot of people that get long COVID or some of these chronic illnesses, and I'm speaking from my own personal experiences. If this isn't how you experience it, then, you know, you do you, right? Okay, 1 second. I need to pause, because I'm just gonna like pause the video, and then we're gonna start again, because hopefully it didn't stop recording. Okay, good. We're good. We good. It didn't stop recording, so we didn't miss any video, because if you've noticed in if you watch on YouTube, sometimes there's like missing video in the middle, and it's so fucking annoying. What was I talking about? Yeah, boundaries. So with Art Freaks, with the podcast, with my art, with intimate like relationships, with friendships, with my family, like something I'm really clocking in on with my health is boundaries, and how much they've changed for me. I think when I was younger, my boundaries were very wide. I have always been a very spontaneous, or I was a very spontaneous, a very like yes person. And I think it's funny, like sometimes I feel like people are like, oh, you need to say yes more. I think I'm actually the opposite. I think I need to say no more, and learning how to say no and how to let people know like what I can and can't do. And, you know, I think what has forced me more into it, especially around my health, is like, if somebody wants to go and do an activity, I'm like, you know what, that's out of my capacity. Like, can't do that. You know, like I can't go. There's some new girls that I met, and they like want to go to spin class, and I'm like, yeah, I can't go to spin class. Not for me. I'm not doing like hard physical activity at the moment. I haven't worked up to that with my health, or even like certain restaurants or like foods that I can't eat, you know, telling a waitress or a waiter like no dairy, no gluten, like I can't have it because it's going to be a trigger. And then like with like intimate relationships being like, you know, like do you want to hook up? Like why what is the goal here? I don't want to hook up. Like, I don't even want to kiss you. Like, I want to get to know you a lot better. Telling friends no, that like, no, I can't come hang out with you. With art freaks, so many people have started to be like, oh, like, let's do this. Like, it'd be cool if we could like partner and do this. And I get it, you know, like when somebody's doing something creative, like people want to latch on and do that with you. And I am all for like community and partnership, but I also realized like this is something that if I am building it and I want it to exist, and I don't even know if it's going to be community at its core or that it will be a for-profit company. I think I have had ideas that it will be for profit. Anyways, but yeah, boundaries has been like a huge theme in my life lately. And yeah, it links to long COVID, and it links to like it's just like a web, an interweb in so many parts of my life. And I kind of think that kind of brings me even to like long COVID. I guess we'll talk about art freaks still in a bit, maybe at the end. Long COVID. So recently I also shared online about long COVID and how that's been impacting me. And that felt really good. It felt really good just to share more to like my direct audience on Instagram, which also includes a lot of my friends. A lot of people reached out to me. A lot of people shared their story and shared their sympathy and like understanding. And it's just interesting to see what that looks like, you know? And I just felt a bit more seen, because I think sometimes through this whole experience, I've felt really alone, and I've felt really lost, and I've felt very denied and unseen. And luckily I have found a lot of people online. Shout out to Harry Bobby and his community on the mend. Shout out to Long COVID Breathing. Shout out to M on the Brain and Minecraft. Shout out to Esther's Universe. Shout out just to like so many different creators that are sharing and creating about chronic illness. And I think it's funny, one of those things, the way like the internet serves us back what we want. You know, I wouldn't have been so much aware of this if I hadn't been experiencing it. But obviously people have been experiencing chronic illness and similar things for years, decades, centuries. You know, it's not something new, but until it really pops up in your life, it's not something that you might be as exposed to, you know, unless it's a friend that experiences it, or a family member, or it's something that like you've learned about through some sort of way. And it's just that, I think, is just a fact of life. So like, no hate to anybody that doesn't understand it, but like if you don't know about it, if you've never experienced it, how would you like even know about it, if that makes sense, you know? And so yeah, sharing about long COVID was really kind of therapeutic online, and I think I'm just going to share more about it. Also kind of, I guess that also kind of links with like my recent, like with art in general and with creativity in general. And I've been doing the artist way, but I've been stuck on like week 7, and I don't think it's an uncommon thing. People seem to like get stuck point on it. And I think I'm like week 7 or 6, and it's about where I've been stuck is around money. Which I mean is interesting for me, and I think it makes sense. But I need to start doing more of the artist pages. And yeah, so my identity as an artist, especially in 2017 when I decided to call myself an artist and really claim that identity, I think I latched onto it so hard that it was restricting me from all my other creative capabilities, like doing this podcast or editing videos or sharing stuff online. You know, I felt like if I'm an artist, I can't do all these other things. And of course, like over time, I've started to expand my curiosities and my understanding of what it means to be an artist, what it means to be somebody who's like hyper creative, which I really am. Like it's the way I function. It is just simply who I am. It's not like I try to be this way. Like I'm not trying, okay? This is just how I exist in the world, which I think is exactly how it should be, you know? It shouldn't be forced. It should just be how you are. And even in contradictory to that is like, if you do want to tap more into creativity, like sometimes you do, I don't know if it has to be forced, but like you do have to do it. You know, you have to do the creative things, even when it feels uncomfortable. And yeah, so like my identity around being a creative and being an artist has changed. And that is combined with like my boundaries in life, in every aspect of my life. And the, you know, healing from long COVID, and even connecting that to my experience with mental health and mental illness. and sobriety has been wild because it's so deeply interconnected. And I feel like, sobriety for me was a choice, whereas this wasn't a choice. It was just forced upon me. And as it sucks in so many ways, but I'm also so grateful that, I live in a place where my parents can support me. I do, as much as the healthcare system has its flaws, I still was able to get the resources and the help that I need. I'm finally just got my sleep mouth guard, which I've been starting to use this week, and I actually sleep with it. Whereas the CPAP, I couldn't see myself using it long term. It was very difficult to adjust to. I kept waking up. I would get air in my stomach. And actually, shout out to Dr. Viviano from the sleep dentistry in Mississauga. Okay. Felt really seen by him and his whole team, and just reminded me of how severe my sleep apnea is. I stopped breathing 40 times an hour, which is considered severe. And we know how important sleep is, right? Sleep is really important for not just your physical health, but your mental health and overall well-being. So I'm really, really excited to see how that progresses. I'll definitely talk about that more. But yeah, identity, boundaries, it's all just such a big theme in my life at the moment. And yeah, it's expanding the idea of how I'm identifying and how I'm sharing and showing up online. Because I think another part of me is still unwinding the idea of the internet and being addicted to the internet. I wrote this poem once. I need to share it online, but basically it's about how the internet is my first love. It was my first intimate partner. It is where I've been sharing deep, intimate moments with myself and others, whether it be by physically actually sharing, on Tumblr or MySpace or Instagram, or consuming things that are very personal and intimate. It is a source of information and connection, not just to the people on the other side of it, but the information that they have left behind, the process of discovery that you can go on and connect with on the internet. And I mean, AI is interesting. We're hearing about people having AI psychosis and people building relationships with AI. But in a way, I feel like we have been building a relationship with the internet since its beginning. Just like people build relationships with books, the radio, television, movies, theater. It's a unique place because there's nothing really else that exists like it, because it holds so much information and art and data. And as much as it can, disconnect us in many ways, I think it has, but it also helps us to connect in different ways. It helps us to see deeper. And sometimes I think that amount of information is deeply overwhelming. And it's very complex. Also, though, I've had this idea before, and I think people talk about how the mirror is the mirror. The internet is a mirror, something, Black Mirror. It's kind of reflection. And I would go even one step further to say it's a fun mirror. It's a distorted mirror. It's not true. Same with where it's like Yayoi Kusuma's infinity rooms, where you can see the endless mirrors and it goes on and on and on. It's an infinity mirror of reflection. It's a reflection of you, but also of what you're trying to seek out. And it's not real in the sense of it's not physical. It's not in this world, but it still is real in the sense of information and identity and connection. And yeah, it goes deep, man. We haven't been building, we haven't just been building relationships with AI. We've been building a relationship with the internet since its existence. And just bringing it back to my idea of how I'm identifying both as an artist and a creator, and just in life, I feel I have been completely stripped of my identity in so many ways, and now I'm building it back up and creating it in a new way. It was really the universe was screaming at me to slow down and chill out and wake up to what things I had been ignoring. And whatever, I'm just using, however you want to interpret that, you can interpret that. I mean it, I think, very much in in a subjective way, in a metaphorical way, I guess, is how I think. I think that's kind of how I think of like the universe and God and Mother Nature. I think it's all kind of metaphorical, us trying to explain the unexplainable, because you can explain a tree, but if you aren't a tree, you don't know what it's like to be a tree, you know? And yeah, having my not being able to like be active and travel and like not living on my own and not doing all the things that I thought I would be doing at this age, I don't feel like who I was or who I was supposed to be. And I also feel like I'm still stuck in some of my habits, whether that's, doom scrolling or negative self-talk or, trying to do a lot and hustle and put back into that hustle culture. But then also there's like this cognitive dissonance going on with me, where I'm like also not who I used to be, but I still have the habits of that old person. But I also have a completely new body, in the sense of I'm listening to it differently. I'm interacting with my body differently. So in so many different ways, I just feel like I've changed. And I think through this change, it also has allowed me to be more like vulnerable in a way that I haven't before, and like show up and share stuff on my Instagram, share stuff on my podcast, understand things more deeply with myself, have conversations with people. And even with that, like, I think I'm showing up more online because I feel like I am lacking those relationships in my life. In your 30s, people are settling down, people are having kids, they're getting married, they're in committed long-term relationships, they've buying houses, they live in different places. And I am like the complete opposite of that. Like, I'm single, I'm sober, I live with my parents, I am following all my creative ventures. I'm not working out anymore. Places where I would go to find community, like I used to find it at my pole studio or at my art studio or at work. And now, like, all those have really been stripped from me in different ways. And it's just, yeah, I feel like I'm lost. I feel like I'm floating through space. I'm making a zine at the moment called I Fell Into a Black Hole, and that's literally, like, I feel like I fell into a black hole. I came in on the other side into this new universe, this new alternate reality, and it's like I'm not meant to be here. I am somebody from another world. Like, this isn't me. Where did my self go? What world is this? Like, it's weird, and I can only explain it by metaphor, maybe, and by through things which words cannot explain, which is why I think we need art. Like I always say, art, it's healing. Art it's expressive. It exists. It's pre-verbal. I think that's why it's so healing. Talking is healing, but art and music are things that, words cannot explain. And, yeah, so it's just like on the idea of me and myself and how I'm existing in this world. And it's all so deeply interconnected. Like, it's not just me re-identifying as a creative, but me rediscovering my body and my health and my boundaries and who I am and who I want to be. And it feels lonely, but also I feel really grateful for the people that are on my path with me, even though I don't feel like I'm very understood or seen. And I'm sure many people feel like that way in their own lives. And yeah, I mean, if you can relate to this in your own way, let me know. But yeah, change can be really difficult, but it's also beautiful. And I'm really just trying to like lean into it and understand what is best for me, and coming back to boundaries, like learning to say no and learning to be the person that isn't super spontaneous and saying yes, and listening to all the voices that are asking me, like, oh, like, hey, you should do this with your thing, or you should do this with Art Freaks, or you should do this with your podcast, or you should do this with your art. And sometimes the advice I think is good, and I want the advice, and I've taken the advice before. Like, there was actually on my TikTok years ago, 2020, I like posted one of the posts that went viral for me was a post about one of the paintings I had made, and somebody wrote on it, like, make art prints, which is why I made art prints from it, which is kind of crazy. And I sold a bunch of them. I still have a bunch of art left around, but it's interesting how influenced I was by that one person saying something to me, and it influenced me. And more recently, somebody who I have like built a parasocial relationship with slid in, like she followed me and slid into my DMs because they had liked one of her posts, and then it came up, like, you know how people do the thing like comment this thing and I'll send it to your inbox, and I didn't comment. I just really like her content. I really really want to support her, and she's transitioned into a content coach essentially, and that's not something I feel like I really need in my life. I know how to make content. I'm constantly consuming and understanding the marketing of it, but I also feel like really counterintuitive to how I like to create. So I feel like I need to find my own path, and that's obviously like what I'm doing here with the podcast and stuff. And yeah, they were like, "Oh, you just be like a personal do like a not a personal brand. You are the brand." And it's funny because it's like, oh god, and this goes into like the whole parasocial relationships of shit, which I can talk about that too. Honestly, I think maybe I will edit this into a two-part. Maybe this is part two. Okay, this is part two. Or no, this is the end of part one, and now go watch part two.